Did President Trump just manage to get China to back down on its biggest weapon, its resource weapon, to score a major win for American farmers and industry? That's really the question everyone's asking after that big Trump-Xi summit on October 30th. Welcome back to the Deep Dives. Today, our mission is pretty clear. We're cutting through all the diplomatic talk. You know, the president said the meeting was amazing, even a 10-point scale. But most trade analysts we're seeing are calling it more like a fragile truce. So what we need to do, what you need to understand, are the real wins, the threats that are still out there, and frankly, the new reality for U.S. companies dealing with China. We've dug into the official statements, the market data, trying to get the real story here.
Yeah, and it's interesting because the sources really show this wasn't some fundamental shift in policy, not at all. It looks much more like pure transactional stuff. The U.S. got a tactical pause, basically, bought some time, got huge promises for U.S. agriculture, a key pledge on fentanyl, but crucially kept that defensive wall up to protect our strategic industries, from espionage, unfair trade, all that.
Okay, let's unpack that strategic exchange. Starting with something huge, a crisis hitting communities everywhere, fentanyl. The sources say China gave a major concession. What did the U.S. actually get? And what did it cost us right away?
Right. This was a direct win, you could say, on the national security front. Tangible. China basically promised, much tougher enforcement against those precursor chemicals.
The ingredients for fentanyl.
Exactly. The raw ingredients needed to make it. And in return for that cooperation, the U.S. immediately cut the tariff rate on goods tied to those specific chemicals in half.
From 20% down to 10%.
Yeah, exactly. Dropped it right down to 10%.
Okay, cutting a tariff in half, that's significant. But, based on past promises on this, how much faith should we put in China's pledge this time? Is it real cooperation, or are they just saying what we want to hear to get some economic relief?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? The uncertainty is definitely there. We absolutely have to be skeptical. But the U.S. did get an immediate economic benefit for consumers. That tariff cut actually helped lower the total combined U.S. tariff rate on everything from China. It went from a massive 57% down to 47%.
Wow, a 10-point drop overall.
Exactly. So that gives some immediate relief to importers, And look, the U.S. can snap those tariffs right back if China doesn't follow through. The leverage is still on our side.
Okay. And moving beyond tariffs, maybe the biggest economic win was for a group hit really hard by these trade fights, American farmers. How did this truce help restore demand for U.S. agriculture?
Oh, it was huge. Absolutely huge. China committed to start buying soybeans again right away. They agreed to take 12 million metric tons just this year. But the really big deal for, long-term stability for those farmers in Iowa, Illinois who need to plan is the commitment for the next 3 years. A minimum of 25 million tons annually. That gets their demand back to what, analysts consider a normal historical level. It stabilizes things for the Farm Belt.
That's huge. 3 years of predictability basically delivered overnight. And what about Silicon Valley? There was also a pause for them too, wasn't there?
That's right. The tech sector, they've been really wrestling with all these export rules. We got some immediate breathing room. The U.S. put that controversial 50% ownership rule on hold for 1 year.
The one limiting tech exports to firms linked with China.
Exactly, that one. So suspending it gives companies a critical year to sort things out, adjust their plans. It eases those immediate compliance headaches.
So, okay, big wins on farming, fentanyl, temporary tech relief.
Yeah.
But important to stress, this wasn't the U.S. just rolling over. We need to be clear. Those high tariffs protecting key American industries, they're still very much in place. What are the big ones we held on to?
Oh yeah, that defensive wall is absolutely solid. We're talking about protecting against what a lot of people see as, frankly, existential economic threats. Take the car industry. That massive 100% tariff on electric vehicles, aimed squarely at stopping a flood of subsidized Chinese EVs from wiping out American manufacturing jobs. That didn't change one bit.
100%. That's basically putting up a wall, isn't it? A giant keep-out sign for Detroit.
Pretty much. It's a decisive move, trying to protect the future of American automaking, American mobility. And then there's semiconductors, the chips that run everything. Guided missiles, smartphones, you name it. That tariff is still set to jump to 50% on January 1st, 2025. That sends a crystal clear message about needing domestic chip production, independence.
And the basic building blocks, steel, aluminum, copper, things we need for infrastructure, for defense.
Those tariffs are still locked in under Section 232.
Right, the national security justification.
Exactly. Section 232 lets the U.S. impose tariffs if national security is deemed at risk. So we kept a 50% tariff on steel, aluminum, and semi-finished copper. This isn't just about trade balances. It's viewed as a necessary defense, safeguarding critical American industrial capacity so we're not reliant on rivals for materials we absolutely need.
Okay, let's shift gears now. Let's talk about the ultimate leverage China has, what people rightly call their ace in the hole. This is where the strategic threat gets really serious.
Yeah.
Rare earth minerals.
Yeah, this is the resource weapon.
Yeah.
And it hits right at the core of American defense, high-tech manufacturing, everything. We're talking about those 17 elements, vital for guided missiles, advanced radar, EV motors, wind turbines. The problem isn't that they're physically rare everywhere. The vulnerability is that China absolutely dominates the refining process.
Just how dominant are they? Give us the numbers. What's the scale of this stranglehold?
It's staggering. China controls somewhere between 85% and 90% of the entire global capacity for refining rare earths. That refining bottleneck, that's our biggest weakness. And if you look further down the supply chain at high-performance magnets, China makes an estimated 93% of those globally.
And those magnets are in everything.
Everything that needs a powerful, lightweight motor, defense, consumer electronics, everything. It gives Beijing just incredible leverage over our supply chains. It's immense.
So when Beijing announced they were suspending some controls as part of this truce, a lot of people maybe thought, okay, they backed off completely. But you're saying it was more like a tactical pause? What exactly did they hit pause on, and what dangerous controls are still active?
It was definitely tactical, purely designed to ease the diplomatic heat, the economic pressure. What they suspended were those really aggressive October 2025 rules, the ones that tried to assert control outside China. This is key because those rules included the infamous de minimis rule.
Right. Explain why that de minimis rule was so controversial, so aggressive.
Well, it was basically an attempt to dictate terms to foreign companies worldwide. Under that rule, any foreign product, let's say a defense part made in Germany or the U.S., if it contained even a tiny amount, 0.1% or more, of Chinese rare earths.
Just 0.1%.
Yes, it would have needed a Chinese export license. Think about that. It's basically trying to regulate the defense industries of other sovereign nations, just incredibly aggressive. So by suspending that, they gave immediate, significant relief to defense contractors everywhere.
But crucially, they didn't scrap their underlying control system, did they? The core threat is still there.
Absolutely not. The foundation, that April 2025 licensing system, still fully active. And that system controls the export of 7 really critical heavy and medium rare earths, things like dysprosium and terbium.
Which are needed for?
High-temperature magnets, the kind you need for fighter jets, guided weapons, specialized electronics that get really hot, top-tier defense stuff. By keeping that licensing system running, Beijing keeps total discretionary power over the supply of the most vital materials for our most advanced military systems. So yeah, the strategic resource battle, it's just been postponed. It's definitely not over.
Okay, let's look at how the markets reacted on October 30th. How did Wall Street take the news of this tactical truce? Did everything just shoot up?
Not at all. It was really mixed, actually. It really showed how different sectors are performing. Company earnings were the big driver for many stocks. The truce couldn't paper over weak fundamentals. Look at Meta, it dropped, 11.39%? And Microsoft slid about 2.9%. That poor performance helped drag the whole NASDAQ down 1.6%, about 377 points.
But some of the really big American tech giants held strong, didn't they? The resilient ones.
Exactly. You contrast that with Alphabet, Google's parent company. They reported quarterly revenue over $100 billion for the first time ever. Their cloud business revenue was up 34%. Alphabet and Apple, too, both hit new closing highs that day. It suggests the core American big tech players are fundamentally pretty solid, even with these geopolitical issues.
And there were some specific companies feeling the pain, too.
Oh, yeah. The market didn't hesitate to punish companies with internal problems, truce or no truce. Tesla, for example, dropped sharply, 4.6%, after news of yet another Cybertruck recall, their 10th one in 2 years, I think.
Ouch.
Yeah, so that kind of internal struggle just overshadowed any good news on the trade front for them. But interestingly, rare earth stocks, they rallied right after the truce was announced.
A clear signal.
A very clear signal that the market saw suspending those aggressive Chinese controls as a major relief, even if everyone knows it's probably temporary.
That rare earth rally really highlights the dependency we're trying to break, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Which brings us to the counter strategy. That one-year pause China gave us isn't just breathing room. It's got to be seen as a critical window, right? The Manhattan Project moment some are calling for.
It absolutely has to be. It's a mandatory acceleration toward independence. We now have this 1-year delay, this window to seriously ramp up domestic production and refining. We simply cannot be dependent on a strategic competitor for materials that are fundamental, absolutely fundamental to our national security and sovereignty.
So what's actually happening now? What concrete steps are being taken to use this chance to make sure that when this year is up, we're not still vulnerable?
Well, the good news is the industrial mobilization is underway. It's happening. American companies like MP Materials and USA Rare Earth, they're on track to start actual magnet production and heavy rare earth processing here in the U.S. within the next year.
Yeah.
That starts to close that critical refining gap.
And the government's involved.
Deeply involved. The Pentagon is actively putting money in. About $400 million is being invested into producers like MP Materials, specifically to secure a domestic supply chain, especially for defense contractors, the ones needing materials for missiles, radar systems. This is viewed squarely as a national security imperative, not just about market share.
So wrapping this up, our deep dive really shows the complexity here. The Trump-Xi meeting yielded a tactical truce. Yes, it delivered some key immediate win stability for farmers, lower fentanyl-related tariffs, and crucially, that one-year pause on the resource weaponization. But the bigger strategic fight, the one for technological and resource independence, is absolutely not over. China still holds that ultimate leverage, especially over those critical defense minerals.
And that leads to the essential question, the one you, the listener, should really be thinking about. The market reaction, the need to keep those incredibly high tariffs in place, it all shows the real cost of being globally interdependent, especially with rivals. So American industry now has this one-year window to really achieve supply chain independence. The question is, will Congress, will private companies move fast enough? Will we actually accelerate production so that in 12 months we genuinely don't care what China does with its export controls because we have our own secure supply? Or will we find ourselves still vulnerable when Beijing decides inevitably to turn that resource weapon back on full blast?
That is a critical national security question. It demands sustained focus, real commitment, and frankly, vision. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. We'll definitely be watching that one-year clock. The future of American industry really could hinge on what happens next.